Hello and welcome. I am Sinemet Olatunji, a Regional Impact Manager with myFutureNC, and along with my colleague Angie Jenkins, we are leading the myFutureNC's Opportunity Youth Network. The Opportunity Youth Network is one of the strands of myFutureNC, a statewide organization with a vision of 2 million North Carolinians earning a post-secondary degree or credential by 2030. We welcome all of you to this Opportunity Youth Network webinar. We thank you for joining us. We are thrilled to announce that we have a panel of 3 guests who will present on the Surry Yadkin Works program. The program is a regional internship model providing an opportunity for high school students in Surry and Yadkin counties to complete an internship in a local business, gain valuable real-world experience, earn high school credit, college credit, industry recognized credentials, a financial stipend, and get paid for travel. Joining us today, we have Crystal Folger-Hawks, Surry Yadkin Works Program Director, Dr. David Shockley, President of Surry Community College, and Yadkin County Commissioner Kevin Austin, who we will learn more about a little later in the webinar. We have an exciting hour, so we are going to go ahead and get started. Today's just some logistics. Today's webinar will be recorded, and recording and resources will be sent by email post-webinar. We are also joined by our colleagues, Tracy Metz, Mitchell Whitley, and Tony Blunt, who will be providing any technical support that we need and who will be monitoring the chat for any questions that come in. And due to the number of attendees, everyone is automatically placed on mute and any questions can be submitted in the Q&A. So before we get started, we want to set the stage of the Opportunity Youth Network and just give a brief overview of the network. We are guided by a cross-sector network of K-12, higher education, nonprofit, workforce development boards, and county commissioners who are all committed to bringing best practices to the engagement of youth statewide and in our local communities. So these are the folks who are guiding our work and who are involved in the work of the myFutureNC Opportunity Youth Network. So just a little bit of background of who our Opportunity Youth are. You may have previously heard youth who are not connected to work or school as disconnected youth, and we are intentionally using Opportunity Youth to highlight the assets and potential these youth represent in their local communities. In past webinars, we presented data that speaks to the urgency around engaging Opportunity Youth and putting together this network. In 2019, Measure of America put together a report that stated 1 in 9 16 to 24-year-olds are considered Opportunity Youth, and these are pre-pandemic numbers. And at that point, our state ranked 32nd of 51 in terms of how many Opportunity Youth are in our community. For the majority of these young people, their transition into adulthood is aided by strong attachments within education institutions, which are gradually supplemented and replaced by workplace and professional ties. And for too many of these young people in these communities, these relationships either don't exist for them or are not strong enough to help these students stay on their intended pathways. And so we recognize that the cost of Opportunity Youth is both professional and then also personal. And so these losses include loss of wages across their lifetime, loss of career opportunities, and a greater dependency on social services. There's also societal loss. And so this includes, loss of revenue in communities and then increased spending on these social services for Opportunity Youth. And we feel there's great urgency to focus on this work locally and help to support Opportunity Youth to reach their greatest potential. Next slide. So we want to draw attention to this map, and this is a reminder of the 53 counties considered to be part of the Opportunity Youth Network. And these are counties that had Opportunity Youth as an opportunity for growth on their profiles and those that had an opportunity rate of 10% or higher on the 2020 county attainment profiles. It is important to note that this list grew from 31 to 53 counties from year 1 to year 2, which further speaks to the urgency as to why this work is so critical and important. We also want to add to your toolkit. One of our partners, NC Impact, has announced an important initiative, the Carolina Across 100, which will take place through the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, which seeks to connect young adults to employment. This is a 2-year initiative focused on expanding and deepening education and employment pathways for young adults between the ages of 16 to 24 who are out of work and school. This life-transforming support to these young adults contributes to the important myFutureNC statewide goal of increasing the number of residents with high-quality credentials or post-secondary degrees and strengthen employers and communities across our state desperate for skilled workers. We've included the hyperlink for this program in the deck that you will receive after the webinar, and we ask that you visit the site and see how you can get connected to this important initiative. We also want to bring to your attention some upcoming webinars on April 26th at 11 a.m. Andrew Meehan will be conducting a webinar called Speaking a Common Language, 4 Tips for Engaging Employers in Workforce Initiatives, and the link to register is also in the deck. May 12th, Dr. Becky Tippett will be from Carolina Demography, will be presenting on data trends and resources. And then May of 2022, we will be hosting our 4th Opportunity Youth webinar focusing on transition age foster youth and educational attainment. Lastly, in the deck, we have included some resources and tools for you to further assist you in your engagement of Opportunity Youth and bringing attention to North Carolina Association of County Commissioners Pathways Initiative report, which has some great information on Opportunity Youth and some of best practices and organizations and programs around North Carolina that are doing great work to engage our youth. And so before we begin with the guest panelists, I would like to take a moment to introduce them. We are so fortunate to have with us Crystal Folger-Hawkes, who is the current director of Surrey Yadkin Works. She is nationally board certified in career and technical education, taught work-based learning, family and consumer sciences courses for 12 years in Stokes County Schools, was the college liaison at East Surrey High School for 3 years and a career coach for Surrey County Schools and Surrey Community College for 4 years. Crystal has her BS degree in family and consumer sciences education from Virginia Tech and master's in school administration from UNC Greensboro. She is also a 2018-19 Keenan Fellow, a program for teacher leadership, serves as the membership officer for the National Board for Professional Teaching Standards Network for North Carolina, serves as the treasurer for Surrey County Human Resources Association, and 4-H leader for Pilot 4-H. As the program director, Crystal works with businesses and students to implement apprenticeships and extended internship opportunities for students. She also works with Surrey Community College to provide industry-recognized credentials for interns. She directly works with businesses in Surrey County to invest in the development of a well-prepared and highly engaged workforce. As the program director, she oversees the Yadkin County initiatives and is responsible for the delivery and overall success of the program. Our second presenter is Dr. David Shockley, who is the president of Surrey Community College. Dr. Shockley previously served in several capacities at Caldwell Community College, including roles as Executive Vice President of Student Services, and Vice President of Technology Services. Dr. Shockley holds several professional memberships and offices, including past President of the North Carolina Association of Community College Presidents for Surrey County, as well as several awards, honors, and recognitions for his work in the community. He most recently received the Patrick Henry Community College 2019 Distinguished Alumni Award. Dr. Shockley holds a Bachelor of Science degree and Master's degree of Arts in Industrial Technology, both from Appalachian State University, a Doctor of Education from North Carolina State University in Leadership in Adult and Community College Education. It is important to note that Dr. Shockley started his academic journey at Patrick Henry Community College. Dr. Shockley has 2 children and enjoys coaching, weight training, martial arts, and classic car restoration. Lastly, we have Commissioner Kevin Austin, who serves Yadkin County. Kevin Austin is Vice President and Manufacturing Manager of Austin Electrical Enclosures, a second-generation family-owned business which employs around 150 people. Prior to beginning full-time work there in 1983, Kevin graduated from North Carolina State University with a BS in engineering operations, a degree that combines industrial engineering and business studies. His work there has included just about all facets of manufacturing, including serving as CFO and controller for 8 years. Kevin was elected as county commissioner in Yadkin County in 2008 and has served continuously since then, including 11 years as chairman of the board. We welcome and thank all of the presenters today, and we'll turn over the remainder of the presentation to them.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am going to get the presentation loaded up. Hopefully you all can see that, where it's coming. Good, okay. Thank you all so much for having us today to talk about what Surry and Yadkin County has done to work on youth workforce development engagement locally. We appreciate that. And all three of us are going to be sharing some things about Surry Yadkin Works and other initiatives done in these two areas. So you've already done a great job of presenting us. I'm going to share with you a little bit about what is the mission of Surry Yadkin Works and what it is. So every school system, you know, in the state of North Carolina has some kind of internship experience for students. And what you heard Sentiment mention was that we have something that's more like an extended internship experience. So this involves that extended internship and or apprenticeships in local businesses. And we all know that internships are there to help students gain valuable real world experience. They'll get to earn high school credit, college credit, and some industry recognized credentials. The big key to ours that we're going to talk about here in a few minutes about what makes a difference is the students are getting paid for this and they're meeting the need of our local community. So you'll see there in the mission that we support the economic vitality of our region by matching interns with business partners and the needs of the community. The other huge factor that makes Surry Yadkin Works different than most other internship programs is that we have 4 school systems that are working together. Surry Community College serves all the school systems that are in Surry County and in Yadkin County. So in Surry County, there are 3, Elkin City Schools, Mount Airy City Schools, and Surry County Schools. And then Yadkin County has Yadkin County Schools. So this is the first time that all 4 education entities are working together to assist students and local business owners with meeting their needs. And really what our program does is it connects all 3, education, business, and our government entities. And we'll talk a little bit more about the funding for our program and how government is involved in that further in our presentation. But for the first time, we're able to connect classroom concepts that students are learning at either at their high school or the community college through their CCP courses to local business needs and getting those students an opportunity to have real world interaction. So how is Surry Yadkin Works a little different? Like I said in the beginning, all of our public school systems have some type of internship program. So what makes Surry Yadkin Works a little different? The first thing is we work with a business partner first. So in a traditional high school setting, you're going to work with the students first. So you're going to meet with the students, get to know them and talk to them. And they're going to say, I'm interested in interning in something in engineering. And you're going to go find a company and try to match them up. So what we do that's differently is that we start with the businesses first and we build relationships with our businesses by touring, getting to know them and learning about all of their different positions that they have and the positions that they need to fill. And once we've got that relationship built and we understand what that business's needs are, that's when we go and recruit students from the 9 high schools in these 4 school districts that will have some either education or experience or interest in that area. Now, our folks at the school level, our career development coordinators, our counselors, the teachers are imperative to that process. But we're then becoming like a matchmaker. And then what we're doing in that whole column, in that process of it, is that we're interviewing the students. We're making sure that it's a good fit. So if you remember, we've gotten to know the business well, and we know what kind of position it is. We've seen the position. We've talked to people who work in that position. So now we're trying to match up students that we think would be really good fits for those positions. Then the business interviews the interns and then makes their selections. That is a very important process. It is never a placement. We don't ever call businesses and say, I've got the perfect one for you. Can they start next week? It has to be a complete business decision because we want this intern to be fully invested in the company, and we want them to be treated like they are a regular employee. So the only way to do that is to get full business buy-in. And that's by letting the businesses be in charge. They know their own business best and let them be in charge. So they interview the candidates and select the interns. Now, what we do, the workforce development specialist on our side is, we're working on making sure the high school permission forms are taken care of. A work plan is done. The tax forms, we're working with HR. Sometimes this is their first time ever hiring somebody under 18. We're working with the North Carolina Department of Labor, making sure we have the right youth certificate for the students. We're helping them through that whole process that entire time. And then we're going to go into the intern training from Surrey Community College. And Dr. Shockley is going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. But we do trainings with the students throughout their semester-long internship that the businesses have requested. This was all business driven. And so the students get a soft skills training before they ever start their internship. So they're going to get communication, employer expectations, time management, all of those tips that we all wish we knew before we walked into our job the first day. So they're going to get those tips that first day. And then throughout the semester, they're going to have some very detailed trainings through the community college that we'll talk about a little bit more. And then they have their internship experience. So why do we say it's an extended internship experience? Because in the traditional school system, you're really required 135 hours a semester to get your internship credit. What that usually looks out to be is around 7 hours a week. So we are requiring a minimum of 12 hours a week and increments of 3 hours at a time. And what our businesses said, they're going to come and work. If they spend any less time than 3 hours, they don't get a lot of work done. So once again, using this business model where we're listening to them and their needs, we make sure that the students can intern at least 3 hours a week and for a minimum of 12 hours. Now they can go up from there. If a student is using this as their employment, they can get 20 hours in or 30 hours in. And the whole time we're working with the high school to make sure they have a flexible schedule and they have a schedule that they can do this internship in. So maybe they're taking community college classes 2 days a week and they have 3 days a week free to work at their internship. We just kind of work that out individually with the students and with the businesses to meet their own needs. And what we found is, this does lead to long-term internships for students, and it leads to pre-apprenticeships and apprenticeships. We typically start out with an internship before we ever even move into the apprenticeship. Being in a rural area, apprenticeships is often new to most of our businesses. So if they take a chance on this intern through our program and it goes really well, I can then move into talking to them about apprenticeship opportunities and easily transition them over to an apprenticeship for the student. But ultimately, most of our students, this leads to part-time or full-time employment with the company. And the part-time, I'm really pleased that our business partners do such a great job continuing to work with our students as they transition to the community college to finish up a degree in the field that they're interning in. They let those students continue with a flexible schedule while they're at the community college. So that's really, those are the big key factors that make us a little bit different than a traditional internship program that you usually see in a school system. So our students get to learn and earn at the same time. I'm sorry, I slipped through the slide. So they receive dual credit for their college classes, of course. They're getting their high school credit and their community college credit. And then they are earning a stipend and or an hourly rate. So all of our students do earn a stipend for their performance and for their travel that you see in the next box. For the stipend, they receive $125 a month as long as their performance is really good at their internship. That equals up to be about $500 per semester. Most of our businesses pay our students an hourly rate as well. I only have 3 interns at this current time that are not paid an hourly rate. And that was an agreement that we went into beforehand. They are in some challenging, some nonprofit areas that just wasn't able to pay for it, but the students really wanted to intern. So luckily they are receiving the stipend monthly and they're receiving $125 travel allotment. as well, which is up to $500 per semester. So from the program, our students earn $1,000 for participating in this. Now, I know some people will say, well, they're already earning an hourly rate, and they are, but our students are a lot of times traveling from high school to their internship for work, back to the college for classes, and then maybe even back to their high school after school for sports or athletics or things like that. And so we know that they have a lot of traveling to do living in a rural community. So we believe that $1,000 stipend per month really puts them at a level playing field that they can afford to do this. Also, our program has textbook reimbursement for our students for their college textbooks if it's in their program of study. And all the trainings are free for the students that we're going to talk about here shortly, which is another huge factor for the students and financial. So this gives you a little breakdown of our current interns. We currently have 80 interns this spring semester, and this tells you what business they're located in. So you'll see 16.3% they're working at a manufacturing business, and in health science, 32.5%. Now, this tells you what the company is doing, and Kevin Austin's business is a really good example because he has some interns at his business his business is a manufacturing company. So this gives you a little breakdown about the variety of positions we have. We do not focus on any one specific career area because we're business driven. So what are the businesses in our community and what are their needs? But as you can see, we have quite a bit in healthcare, and I have a strong apprenticeship program with our local hospital, Northern Regional Hospital, where we supply them with CNAs as a pre-apprentice, and then those students can go on to become an LPN or an RN apprentice. So we currently have 15 students at one facility in the hospital, and then we have another hospital where we have a lot of CNAs as well. So this kind of gives you a good breakdown of what are the businesses. But just because the intern is at that business doesn't mean that's exactly what they're doing, right? So we see here that we have 16.3% in manufacturing. Here's the breakdown of what the students are actually doing. So in manufacturing, you'll see only 12.5% of that 16, which is still a high number, are actually working in manufacturing. So the other ones I have some students who are working in HR at manufacturing companies, accounting, just depends on what they're doing. But this is the breakdown of what are the students doing. So we have them in all kinds of areas: construction, graphic design, finance, accounting, in manufacturing. And then that health science, we have 30% because we have that many CNAs out there right now in the business industry of helping in office work, things like that. So this kind of gives you a better breakdown of what are they doing. Now, one question I often get when it comes to manufacturing and construction and things like that are their high school students. How does that work? Well, we just follow the North Carolina Department of Labor guidelines and fill out a special youth certificate for them. As long as they're in an approved internship or apprenticeship program, you can get those students in a detrimental area. I also follow the Federal Department of Labor guidelines for hazardous areas and work and file and complete the correct paperwork for that. So this allows that student who started taking welding classes when they were 16 years of age at the community college, and they're like almost ready to finish their welding degree, but yet they're under 18. This allows us to put them into a paid internship welding while they're under 18, and the business is covered and everyone is covered because the student has experience in that area. So that's been a real big game changer for our community, and it allows us not to lose them to employment after graduation because they couldn't get that job that they wanted. So they went to another field and got a job in another area. So that has been a really big game changer for us, and we're able to put them in areas that the students deserve to be in because they have the experience and they want to be in it. So next, I'm going to let Dr. Shockley share with you some information about how does this high school partnership with the community college system work? How do they all work together, and what kind of trainings the students receive?
Okay, thank you, Crystal, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. And It is a amazing relationship that we've been able to develop through Surrey Yakin Works, and through the Career and College Promise program. That is a statewide program that is available for all high school students as long as you're a junior or senior. And then you have the early college option for those colleges that have early colleges formed. So it's for those students who it's basically for everyone. That's one of the things that we get asked. Is this only for your higher top flying students? The answer is yes. Is this for your lower students? The answer is yes. Is this for your students who have untapped potential that is often overlooked, and often they just don't fit the standardized mold into public school education, and in a lot of cases they don't like it? And the answer is yes. It is for all students, no matter where they are, into getting them their opportunities. Because what we've discovered and what we look at as part of the opportunity youth, as we will call them now, is the effort is trying to get students in a career pathway early on, and a pathway, whether you're going on to a university, from the public schools to the community college, onto a university, that is great. But we want to get you on a career pathway so that when you transfer onto that university, you're able to hit the ground running when you get there to that university, or if you come to Surrey Community College. And so we have, as we've talked about before, 4 public school systems and 1 community college. The 4 public school systems have indeed 4 superintendents. And so the community college is sort of the neutral ground in this case. In fact, we started off this program with just Surrey Community College and Surrey County Schools, and it was funded by Golden Leaf. And we funded this together, sort of a pilot study. We were able to prove that it works, and then we went to our 3 remaining public schools, Elkin City, Mount Airy City, and Yakin County schools, to see if we could do this together and now make it a regional effort. And so what are some of the things we do for the students? There's indeed Yakin County school students that are working in Surrey County with businesses, and indeed Surrey County working in Yakin County in businesses. That is an important point, and I think it's important to see how the relationship and the opportunities. This is a regional approach. It's not just a singular approach with a community college or a public school. It is a regional approach to providing career pathway opportunities and engaging our youth so that they can seek those opportunities that are available out there for the youth. And so through Career and College Promise, these students can enroll in certificate programs, diploma programs, or degree programs in advanced engineering, such as welding, machining, mechatronics, welding, health sciences, CNA, and getting into the pre-work to become a nurse or an RN and LPN, RN upon graduation from their high school. Laying these career pathways out very closely and articulating credit, it allows these students not to miss opportunities and to seize time and opportunity with a pathway right through the public schools and the ability to walk across the stage and get a high school diploma and a credential for Surrey Community College and be ready to go to work, oftentimes at 18 years old. In fact, we have placed many students through this pathway and opportunity in work upon graduating high school. We have a job signing where they actually sign contracts to go to work for companies that they have done internships or apprenticeships with. And so we're basically using programs that are not new. They're not, I think they are innovative, but they are available to all North Carolina public high school students who are juniors and seniors, and it's available for tuition free through the state of North Carolina. These programs are offered at all community colleges. And indeed, the programs that our students transfer into universities are available for students as well. So it's important to note we're leveraging existing resources that are available, but we're leveraging together as one educational entity called Surrey Yakin Works that partners with our business and industry and partners with our government. And so that's sort of how this is formed. And then along the way, our students are trained all along the process once a month, and they're able to get industry credentials that also enable them to go to work, such as they receive public speaking so that they are prepared to be able to go out and communicate. Things like looking at people in the eye when you speak with them, shaking with a firm handshake. So having them prepared to enter into that workforce environment and to communicate. Computer skills is something that we teach so that they're ready for the technology that they may be using. We use the DISC behavioral assessments to help them understand their personalities and help them understand career pathways and things that that they're naturally talented for, and helping them identify those type things. We offer them a Lean Six Sigma yellow belt, or actually a green belt certification, so that they're able to think and be lean thinking, which is one of the things that business and industries are working on all over, because our students are going in prepared to help that company or business or service to be able to be lean and to be able to save resources and to be able to contribute to that company as an employee when they go. A lot of times that we don't look at this as it is a student internship, but I like looking at it, they become employees of these companies, part-time employees, and then sometimes future employees. So we do that. And we also do the OSHA 10 training. So they have a certification in the safety. If you look at business and industries, this sounds a lot like an orientation that a company would have. And that's basically what we're doing. They earn a certification from Surrey Community College, which is a work-based certification. That means that these students are ready to go to work. They are work ready to go in that environment. And so these are the things that we prepare them for as individuals, so that they can go to an internship and apprenticeship and contribute to those employees and employers and become a vital part of that team. And so that's sort of our broad overstructure. And I will pause there, because the beautiful part of the triangle that Crystal showed you, and it's in the backdraft right there, if you can see it, it's education, it's government, and it's business and industry. It all bleeds together and it all supports one another. And so I know that Commissioner Austin has some things that he will be reviewing. So I am going to pause here, not to overstep into to his, but it is very blurred together. The lines are totally blurred and moving forward.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for being here with us. And you're so right, David. The lines are blurred, and they're pleasantly blurred. And I think it's to the benefit of all that we have managed to blur these lines. This team around Surrey Yadkin Works is very close, and I think it's part of the reason the program has been so successful. So. Yeah, Crystal mentioned that as the program developed, it was brought to Yadkin County for inclusion, so that it could service the entire area, the Surrey Community College service area. And so I'll just say that probably one of the most important things that commissioners do is look after the welfare and the quality of life for the citizens that they serve. I've always regarded that as something really to focus on. And I know that everyone else involved in this really shares that same focus. But in looking at Yadkin County and the trends that we've been seeing since I've been elected in 2008, some of these trends were not extremely positive, and we were seeing a lot of struggle with our industries and employers finding the help that they needed. And it's even worse now. It's post-COVID and the great resignation and everything else that has gone on around COVID. These numbers are just terrible. But when we look at the last 10 years, after 30 years of steady growth of population in Yadkin County, we'd actually seen a decline. We had probably since 1980 through 2010, we'd seen about a 35% increase in our population. And that's good growth. That keeps steady growth well fed. But in the 10 years after that, we saw about 3% reduction in population. It started really with the 2008 recession and the move that so many rural counties have seen, losing population, seeing people move to the more urban areas, or the areas with larger populations, larger employers, et cetera. So we were certainly seeing that here in Yadkin, but it just kind of snuck up on us what the effect of that was and how critical it became for our employers. We had one of our major, well, I guess it's our major employer in Yadkin County, call us commissioners in on the carpet. This was probably about 2015, 2016, and identify this problem, finding sufficient workforce. And so they implored us to help, find ways to help. And so we started soul searching. How can we help? And, we've looked at a lot of things through that time and through that lens. We went back and studied our labor participation rate. And when you look at the trend since 2010 in Yadkin County, our labor participation rate has fallen steadily. 2010, it was 62.2% labor participation rate, which is an acceptable rate. It's pretty consistent with what our entire region sees, but we fell steadily from there. We went from 62.2 to 61.3, 60.1, 59.5, 58.1, 56.0, 54.8, 54.6, and then finally in 2018, we bottomed out at 54.3% labor participation rate. And so it made us start really wondering what's happening here? Where are the people going? Where is the workforce going? A lot of those years were economic recovery years. And as I said, all of our employers had openings that were unfilled. Well, when I became president, when I was president-elect of our North Carolina Association of County Commissioners, it was time for me to decide what my presidential initiative would be about. And I had become aware of disconnected youth statistics, opportunity youth statistics. And unfortunately, Yadkin County was one of the worst. In fact, one of the years in the 2010s, we were the second highest rate of disconnected youth in the state. Only Allegheny County was higher than us that particular year. And in successive years, we had rates that were in the top 10 or bottom 10, I guess I should say. And that also culminated in 2018 when we hit our worst rate, and that was 26.1% disconnected youth. So a connection was made there. It was easy to see. We've lost population, workforce participation had fallen, and disconnected youth had increased. It was painfully obvious that disconnected youth, opportunity youth, was a group we needed to reach out to, try to affect. Now, along the way, we put in programs like our Lego robotics to introduce STEM concepts to elementary kids. We also introduced the high school and middle college Lego robotics program, which is much more robust program to help them see opportunities in STEM fields for the kids. We put in a program called Dream It, Do It, where 8th graders could tour manufacturing facilities and actually have a little bit of hands-on experience, touching the product, touching the processes during those manufacturing plant tours. And those were very successful, had a lot of excitement from the kids. We'd hear stories of them going home, telling their parents that's where they're going to work when they grow up. So it was helping to make the connection for future employers, but that was that's the 8th grade level. So we needed to work on that continuum. The next program we put in place in Yadkin County was the Yadkin Guarantee, which assured community college tuition for kids who had graduated from Yadkin County schools. so that they could continue their education. You know, it's the last dollar in program. They had to apply for FAFSA, complete the FAFSA application and see what other funds they could find. But it also paid not only their tuition, but also books. And I believe it pays even some transportation costs. So that was well received and well taken advantage of. It had many, many benefits in our community, not the least of which it helped the community college at the Yadkin Center achieve the required FTE to attain campus status, and that was a tremendous deal. And of course, it also created the additional students, which would allow the community college to increase its offerings, broaden its course offerings, and the number of classes offered, the different schedules. It just improved everything for everyone. So that was a tremendously successful program. But there's still that disconnect for the kids in high school who've not graduated yet. So there was well, for my business, there's always been that little bit of frustration that we can't have summer help or after school employees that could do some of our functions. They had to be 18 years old to come into our place of employment. And so I learned about a bill that Senator Ballard from Watauga County had filed, Senate Bill 391, which provided an opportunity for 16 and 17-year-olds to work in some of these environments. Kind of followed that bill as it went through. And then after it passed, talked with some people, including the Department of Labor, and said, look, this bill that's passed, who's putting this in place? Who's implementing it? And the answer was Crystal Folger Hawks and Dr. Reeves in the Surrey County school system. So I started talking with them. Simultaneously, they put this program together, and it all just kind of came together at the right time, that they were ready to expand beyond Surrey County schools across the entire Surrey Community College region. And it was really because of all these factors, it was a no-brainer for us to agree to help fund the program. And primarily our funding goes to assist with some of the costs of the program. You know, we have a coordinator. Crystal was the initial coordinator for the entire system, but Doug Murphy's been added as a coordinator for Elkin City and Yadkin County schools. And so we help fund that position. But mainly, it's to help these kids, and it's doing it. This is the third or fourth semester of, Crystal could answer that, but it started off small and has grown, and there are 80 kids now currently placed in this program. And to me, the sky's the limit. So it really is a no-brainer for our Board of Commissioners. The results we're seeing in Yadkin County are phenomenal. The reports from the employers and the families are just fantastic. And so we look forward to continuing to fund the program in the future.
Chris.
Yep, I'm not, sorry, I was on mute. There I go. So thank you so much. Something you said resonated with me that I wanted to share a little bit more with the audience is that we have this goal, right? We start with the business in mind. We have this goal of filling the needs and matching people, and that's definitely really, really important part. But what I realized very early on in this process, when I was just with Surrey County, was, I can't just start with him with seniors in high school at that point in time. I have to go way, way, way back. So that's why I started initiating career fairs at all of the schools with the different levels of students, bringing these businesses in as classroom presenters. I started initiating business tours for students to go to these tours. And I think back, we have this one particular manufacturing company in Surrey County. And I have students who, I started these tours 3 or 4 years ago. They come to me and say, I want to work at XYZ. And I say, well, how do you hear about them? Oh, I went on a tour when I was in 8th grade or 9th grade, and I loved it. So we know it works. Kevin has an intern right now that went on a tour in 8th grade, knew that he loved the business and wanted to go there. So we started those student tours, but then I started doing the educator tours because I thought if their educators and their counselors and their career development coordinators couldn't look at them because they trust them. I trust that person who's in my school every day. And if I wanted that person to be able to say, you should hear about Austin Enclosures and some of the cool things they do there since you like this. I wanted them to talk that talk and walk that walk. So I started incorporating teacher and career counselor tours of the businesses. And I incorporated some teachers immersion and then some summer exploration with the businesses and programs in the summer. You know, last year I took a bunch of elementary children around in the summer to all these different businesses and did tours. It was this whole, it really has grown from there, but it's still that end goal. But I'm trying to do it at all these steps at elementary, at middle, and high school. So that way they seamlessly realize what businesses are located locally that I have a career interest in, that I could do something there. Because you ask them what's in these big buildings that they drive by on the way to Walmart or the grocery store or whatever, and they're just like, I don't know. And sometimes I get, oh yeah, I think that's like a sock factory. They just make socks. And I'm like, you have no clue I mean, it's amazing what's going on in there, the technology and what's happening there, that you don't even know that there are those jobs available to you. So that's really, you know, those are all those mini goals that we work on to reach that big goal. And that's a lot of time consuming efforts for us to work with all these school systems and implement that. But the benefits are just reaping so much from what the students and the parents. I mean, a lot of my interns' parents have gotten jobs at these companies now because they're like, oh, this company is a really great company. I should think about working here. So it's it can be a life-changing moment for these students, and it's a family tree changer. So I've had a lot of students that make more money in their internship or their apprenticeship than their parents do, and their parents combined. Had lots of students who told me I'm making more than my mama and daddy do, and they both work. And so we're making big lifetime changes for those students and those students' families with these little steps. And it's not hard. It is time consuming, but this just makes sense. And this is what's right for our students. This is what's right for our business. This is what's right for the community, for us to all come together and support each other, educating the students and getting them ready for their workforce.
And I'll just add on top of that, Crystal, you know, my people in my business, you know, they've been parts of apprenticeship programs before that didn't really make the connection with people because, you know, it was more job shadowing and stuff, and the kids couldn't get their hands on the actual work itself. And I'm not just talking about for my business. I mean, I'm sure the experience of the CNA students who are working in the hospitals and every other placement that you guys have. But this hands-on thing is tremendously important. And we pay a full wage to our apprentices. And you know what? That's our investment. And we're all partners in this investment. So I think it works well that way.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for sharing on this afternoon. We want to say thank you to our guest panelists. Thank you, Crystal Hawks. Thank you, Dr. Shockley, and thank you, Commissioner Austin, for sharing with us the amazing work that is happening in Surrey and Yadkin counties to support and provide opportunities for students, but particularly the opportunity youth population. And so while we have about 10 minutes left in this presentation, we did want to slightly shift here and provide the audience with the opportunity to ask some questions to the panel. And so if you would go ahead and come off mute and ask your questions. If you're not comfortable asking your questions, you can place them in the chat. We'll have some of our team members monitoring the chat as well, and we'll make sure that gets asked to the panelists at that time. So who would like to ask questions first? Okay, that's not a leading question. I have a burning question. So I was trying to be kind and I want to give you guys the opportunity to go, and I'm gonna jump in. And so I'm gonna direct this question to Dr. Shock. Sir, can you tell us what is like the key component or the critical component necessary to make this system work? And because it sounds like you guys are doing some awesome things there. So what holds it together? What makes it work? How do you facilitate that?
Thank you. The first thing that you have to have is the full cooperation of everyone that is engaged in this work. And as you can see, we have engaged our business and industry, our county commissioners, and our educational entities. When Dr. Reeves and I got together and we first agreed to do the pilot study for the Next Career Generation Academy, the one thing that we realized that we were going to have a strong day-to-day leader and director over that program. And often we're asked, does it take a full-time person? Yes, it does. And you have heard from that individual today, Crystal Folger Hawks. And so we selected Crystal Folger Hawks for that position. And then when we formed the Surrey Yadkin Works, which is it really is a sub-organization that is basically the executive committee or the superintendents, we asked Crystal Folger Hawks then to leave the Surrey County School system as an employee, because at that time we funded half of her position, but they billed us and she was a public school employee. And she became a community college employee and we serve as that fiscal agent. And basically, we are the most unique individual in the educational realm, but we all have an equal voice. But we have Crystal Folger Hawks. And then as Commissioner Austin mentioned earlier, we have now added a second employee because it's just much too big for one individual. But you have to have that person who is leading it day to day with strong work habits, self-motivated, and willing to go out there and help build relationships. And that is the critical component. If you do not have a strong leader that supervises this program day in and day out, that would be a barrier to success, in my opinion.
Thank you, sir, for that. I do have another question. Commissioner Austin, if you would answer this one for me, how do you get all of the entities at work to come to the table to work together? And have you found any barriers with getting the entities together to come to the table?
Well, that's a good question. We've been really blessed with the way that this has come together, and it's grown organically from the initial effort of Dr. Reeves and Dr. Shockley and Crystal together. As they say, nothing breeds success like success. And so seeing their early success, it made it easy for the other 3 school systems and all the county commissioners in both counties to jump on board and support this thing wholeheartedly. Dr. Shockley just mentioned, the 2 employees managing 80 students. That's quite a task. And we see this thing easily growing as the success stories continue to spread to the families in both counties and to the industries, the businesses. And every business can benefit from this program. Every business anywhere can benefit from it. So, the sky's the limit. Unfortunately, I'm afraid that, we're going to be turning people away at some point, but it really is, it's just grown organically and it was started the right way. And thankfully the right people were involved. And I just want to pile on to what Dr. Shockley said about Crystal. She's absolutely the right person. You got to find that person who has the drive and the ability, just like Crystal has. We lost one of those guys, Mark Story, down at Catawba County. The Catawba K-64 program was a real inspiration for a lot of us. And there's not that many Mark Stories and Crystal Folger Hawkses around. But if you find one, take full advantage of it. Put them to work, and it'll be very rewarding.
That is phenomenal. Thank you, sir. We did have a question to be entered into the chat. It's from Caroline Williamson, and Caroline asks, how are interns paid? Is a staffing agency used like Manpower to pay interns? And Crystal, can you answer that one for us?
I can address that. So Remember that when I said in the beginning, they get a travel stipend and a performance stipend. So that's that equals up to be it's $250 a month for up to $1,000 per semester. And that all comes from our funding source. So if an intern is in an unpaid internship, that's what they're going to receive, $1,000. If they're in a paid internship, they still receive that. But they're also getting an hourly rate from their employer. So we're not using a staffing agency or anything like that. They're on the payroll at the business, which means they're on their workman's comp. They're earning hours towards benefits and things like that. My interns at the hospital or the pre-apprentices, that's important to them because they're trying to get on long-term there, either as an RN or a LPN or some other area in the medical field. So they're already earning hours towards their employment with them towards benefits and things like that. So they can easily transition over to a full-time position. So there's no staffing agency. Well, I have a staffing agency that contacts me all the time for their to give them interns for their own company. So I do work with a staffing agency, but that's just to fill their needs internally. But we are not using a staffing agency or anything like that for the payments. It's really up to the business. And that's where those conversations come into play, that I'm talking to the business about this, because if you want an employee, then they need to treat the intern as an employee. And I mean, holding them to the same standards as you would an employee. But once you take these students on and you treat them like an employee, then they take ownership of that employment as well, which is what we want. My students do not say at my internship, they say things like, at our company, we believe this.
That's good.
That's super important.
That is awesome, Krista. Thank you for lifting that. That is some really good information to share. And I love what you guys are doing and how you're just providing these youth with such opportunities. I do have one last question before we wind down. So Crystal, not to put you in the hot seat again, I'm gonna give you a minute to answer this question. And then if you gentlemen have a 10-second response to add to it, that would be great as well. But how do you replicate something like this? I know that's hard to put that in a minute, but how is this replicatable?
I think there just has to be a lot of collaboration. I really feel like when I get down to our program, it's not that complicated once we all sat down and kind of worked out the details. You definitely have to have someone driven to do this. And my heart is with students and my heart's with the business and the community too. So just marrying that just gives me so much joy. So it really comes down to honest conversations. Dr. Shockley always likes to say, put your ego aside, because sometimes when you're talking to a variety of leaders, everybody's kind of just got to say, what can we do to work together to get this to happen? And so that's really, I would say, it sounds simple. It's not as simple as it sounds. I think Dr. Shockley could definitely tell you that. But when everyone really comes down to it and puts their heart in it, it's the right thing to do for our community.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Today has been phenomenal. And we're right at 3:00. So we want to definitely honor your time. First of all, I want to thank again our amazing panelists. Thank you for also answering the Q&A round and for providing us with that additional information and context. And particularly giving us the insight on how that can be replicatable from this point forward for those that may be interested. As we close out, I would like for all of our webinar attendees to know that you will receive an email with this presentation containing additional information to support North Carolina's Opportunity Youth. As we've addressed the questions in the chat. If you want to put some final questions in the chat, we will try to email those out to our panelists and have them to provide you with feedback, and we would include that in the email as well. We want to thank you again for attending and such a warm thank you to our panelists. And from the team at myFutureNC, we realize that the goal of 2 million North Carolinians by 2030 to have a high quality credential or degree would not be possible without your efforts and passion at the local level. We celebrate and support you in your work and hope that if you would like to connect, please visit our website and or reach out to us. We are in this partnership together. We thank you so much for attending our webinar. If you see on this screen, you have the information for Synemit, her email address, and also my email address as well. Again, we thank you for attending this webinar, and we hope that you all have a wonderful day.